Welcome to The Breakthrough Story. The purpose of The Breakthrough Story is to look behind the scenes of successful individuals in Columbus, Ohio to see what challenges and breakthroughs they experienced along their path to success. What obstacles did they face in their early stages of life, and what helped them break through those obstacles? What has helped them succeed, and what is something they did differently? These are some of the few questions we try to answer with The Breakthrough Story. This episode is brought to you by Orange Visuals. Orange Visuals is a one-stop shop listing and branding service for real estate professionals in Central Ohio. When you need to market yourself or a property, Orange Visuals provides all the services such as photo, video, brochures, single property websites, and so much more. Visit Orange Visuals today and see why top producing realtors choose to market themselves with Orange Visuals. Well, Sean, thank you so much for joining us on the Breakthrough series. And here we're going to take a look at your story from the very beginning to kind of get an idea of what it takes to be someone like you in your shoes, what challenges you faced and what moments were your breakthroughs that helped you get to where you are right now. And also we want to take a look at your vision forward, like what you're striving for, and then of course any reflections you might have looking back, so that someone who was like you maybe like 20 years ago, like starting out, what do they want to know? What is something you would teach your younger self in a way? So okay. Thank you so much for joining.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So to start out, if you want to give a little bit of a background of who you are and what you do, so that the viewers can kind of get an idea.
Sure. So I'm Sean Carpenter. I live here in Columbus, Ohio, and I am a real estate agent. I'm a real estate speaker, and I'm a real estate coach. So I kind of do three roles. I've been in real estate for 23 years, and I've been actively selling for the last couple of years after I was the director of training with our company for 11 and a half years. And I started coaching in the last 2 years and have a good time doing that, sharing ideas and techniques and skills for agents to better serve their customers and grow their business.
Yeah, and you've obviously been featured in magazines, even recently in the Columbus Realtors magazine. And so you travel, like you mentioned to me, the next 6 or 7 weeks from you all over the country speaking. And so there's a lot of people that get to know they want to hear your expertise and what you know, but I don't think many people know about your story necessarily, and so that's what we're here to do. So If you want to take it back to the beginning, where did you kind of start up? Where did you grow up? Were you here originally from Columbus? Did you move here?
So I was born in Billings, Montana. My father was a landscape architect out there, and then a couple years after I was born, he got a job teaching at Cornell University in Ithaca, New York. So the family moved to Ithaca. My younger brother was born there. We were there for about a year and a half, and then he got a job at Ohio State. So he became the director of landscape architecture at Ohio State, and so we moved here in early 70s. Mom still lives in the house that we grew up in Upper Arlington, Ohio. I went to Upper Arlington High School. I worked my way off to college at University of Florida. I wanted a big school like Ohio State, but in the South. I'm not a big fan of cold weather. So I wanted to go to school down south somewhere. Went to the University of Florida, majored in exercise and sports science, Tim, where I had dreams of going into the sports business, working in the front office of a major league team or doing something big like that. Didn't work out that way. I had a great time in college. I was there for 6 years. I just had a blast being part of the University of Florida campus and lifestyle, and I was very active in my fraternity. I was president of my fraternity. And upon graduation, I started working in the golf business. I got a job in a golf course, and then I sort of segued into the professional golf management lifestyle career, and I did that for 3 years. I worked at a big resort course in Brooksville, Florida, which is above Tampa, and then I moved to a private club near Cleveland. So my wife and I, we just got married and had a chance to move back closer to home here in Columbus, and did that for another year. Then moved back down to Columbus, where I became a beer salesman.
So you went to college in Ohio State, right?
I went to college in Florida.
Florida. And when you were going to college, you said you wanted to be like an exercise therapist in a sense, like for the big leagues.
No, actually, exercise and sports science was the major, but I was in sports administration. Was my major.
So why did you want to do that?
I don't know. I'm a sports fan. I've been a sports fan since I was a little boy. I have a competitive nature. I just love, I grew up watching Red Sox and the Cincinnati Reds in the old days. And then obviously when Dad taught at Ohio State, we watched many of the great Buckeye teams under Coach Woody Hayes. And so I just fell in love with the sporting world, and I wanted to do something in sports. As a fan, you look at the sports world and you think, what a cool job that would be. And you don't really realize how small those companies are, right? The New York Yankees is a big name, but it's a very small organization, right? There's only a few people that work in the front office of the New York Yankees. And so it was just something I wanted to do. It was just something that I kind of, I wasn't sure if it was going to be a marketing role or a...
you just want to be involved.
I just want to be involved in the business.
So, but you realized quickly that there wasn't much opportunity, or what was it that made you?
Well, I literally kind of the same thing I do now in real estate. I sent out a bunch of letters saying I'm interested in working for your organization, and I still have them in my attic somewhere. But I got back all these letters from all the organizations. I went to the this was pre-internet days. I went to the library and I checked out an almanac of all the sports teams, their mailing addresses, and so really every Major League Hockey, football, basketball, baseball team, every major event like the Kentucky Derby and the tournament players and the Augusta National, Masters events and things like that. I sent letters just saying I'd love to know if you're hiring. And I have all these rejection letters with the logos of all these great companies and teams on it, but it just was just something that just didn't work out, and I didn't pursue it. So I kind of took another path, and I'm glad I'm where I'm at.
I think that's two good lessons right there, like the perseverance of trying out all these options, but then also being able to understand maybe this isn't something for me. I can move on. It's not necessarily I have to push at this thing. But so you did that. Did you finish the degree for
I did. I graduated with a bachelor's in exercise and sports science, and so I made it through the program, and it just took me 6 years to do it because I was in no hurry to get out. I was having a blast down there.
That's awesome. And so then you ended up going to golf, right?
Yep.
And then so how did that kind of transition? So you were doing the golf, and what were you doing in that area? Did you have a plan you wanted to achieve in your career, or were you just kind of going with the flow?
Yeah, I think when I got in the business, Tim, I was looking to become a golf professional, right? A head golf professional. So the PGA of America has some pretty stringent programs that you have to do, that you have to take some business classes, and you have to be a good enough golfer. So you have to pass what's called a player's ability test, and you have to have so many years of experience. And so I was really enjoying that. It was my first job out of college, and so I was working in the golf business, which is a fun career, but it's really you work every day from sun up to sundown. You work weekends, you work holidays. And so moving back to Columbus, I had a chance to work for a head pro in the Cleveland area that was just a great mentor, probably the best boss I've ever had in my life, to be honest with you.
Why would you say that?
Just the way he taught me how to handle people, the way he taught me how to listen. He was so good at listening people into business. And what I mean by that was the members of the club or the different organizations that would come in, he wasn't trying to sell them anything. He would just talk to them and find out what they wanted and needed and how he could help them. And then he would suggest something to them that would turn into a sale, right? He would listen to members come off the course after having a bad day on the golf course, and they would be complaining about something, right? The wind or a rake in a bunker or noise from the maintenance crew or whatever. And Dominic would just listen to him, and he'd say, what can I do to make it right? And just by listening and not offering anything, and he said, what can I do to make it right? Most people would say well, nothing. I'm just venting, Dominic, but I'd love to get a lesson, sometime when you have a chance. And they'd walk away, and I would just look at him and smile and say, and you just listened them into a $150 lesson right there. And so just little things like that. He was such a great leader as far as creating loyalty for myself and the other golf professionals on his staff by doing little things for us that just made us feel good. Half days off, $25 just left for us in an envelope saying thanks for all your hard work, and just little things he would do that make you want to be more loyal to him.
That's awesome. And I think that's a characteristic that you can apply to any business and would help you stand out already from anyone else, really. So you were in that industry for golfing, and you mentioned you moved a couple times within that.
Yep.
What was your plan moving forward from there?
I wasn't sure. I watched what some of the best golf professionals did. It's a really interesting business because when you're not in the golf business, you don't really realize how it works. And when you get in it, you realize it's not maybe as glamorous as it looks. A lot of the great head golf professionals around the country, if they're not at one of the pinnacle golf courses, a lot of their money's made. They get usually a salary, and then they get some income from the club for the golf carts rentals and from the pro shop maintenance or pro shop merchandise. But if that's not the setup that you have, you're kind of an hourly employee grinding. And a lot of golf professionals don't play a lot of golf. You think you get into golf because you want to play golf. And because it's the business side of it, they don't get a chance to necessarily get on the golf course and hone their skills. So I just decided as a young as a young man, newly married, wanting to start a family, it just probably wasn't the best environment for me to be in to, where I was working literally every day from sun up to sundown.
Not much family time.
Yeah.
So what were you doing in that business? Like, what did your job consist of?
So, well, obviously you start to start in the golf business, you start usually working in the outside. You get the members' bags out of the bag room and put them on the carts. You tend to the driving range. You help members with all their needs on the outside. And then you eventually move into the pro shop where you're booking tee times and giving lessons and things like that. And so you're just in and around everything to do with the golf business all day long, whether it's at a public course or a resort course or a private course. It's about, getting the course, getting the membership ready to play, get them out on the course, service them before, during, and after the rounds, merchandising, sales, running tournaments, a lot of those things.
So the goal is like to eventually work your way up in there. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay, and then so you did that for a couple years, and what did your life look forward?
Well, and then we moved back to Columbus. We wanted to, my wife is from here as well, and we wanted to get back closer to family. We knew that golf wasn't going to be the vehicle to move forward, so moved back here and just started waiting tables or doing something. And then I got a job in the beer business. I went down and worked for a company here in town that distributed Miller and Coors products in Columbus, and I started as a merchandiser, which meant that I would go around to the grocery stores. And you ever been in a grocery store and you see like the big display of Coors Light stacked up or Miller Light stacked up, in a display? I would build those displays, and I would basically have to go in and make sure the beer got rotated so the freshest beer was on top. And
so you like going to different stores and doing that?
Yeah, you had territories in Central Ohio, and so you would call on all the stores in that area, from the grocery stores to the convenience stores.
Is it like a commission job, or is it just per hour?
So that was an hourly job,
okay.
And then you moved up into a sales role where you actually were going in taking the orders to send the beer in. So as a merchandiser, I would go in the day after the beer got delivered. As a sales rep, you go in and find out what do they need, right? What are they out of? What because every time you walk into a convenience store, let's say a UDF or a Speedway to get beer off the shelf, you see a 6-pack of beer and you pull it off, and then it's the next 6-pack slides down. Well, behind that, in that cooler, there's cases and cases of beer that the staff would go in and put the next 6-packs up and load up the coolers. And so my job would be to sell those products to those
the inventory.
Stores. Exactly.
So how you kind of glanced over it. How did you go from waiting tables to the beer business?
I was looking for a more of a career than just a job, so to speak. And so I think I talked to one of our beer reps that came into our restaurant at the time and said, "Hey, how'd you get your job?" And so I went down and applied and talked to the people, and they liked what I did, and I did a good job merchandising. So they gave me my own route, and then I had another route. And by route, I mean just different parts of town and different restaurants and bars and carryouts you call on. And I eventually, Tim, landed at the Ohio State campus was my territory. So kind of all the bars and restaurants around the Ohio State campus. Now, as you can imagine,
that's a lot.
If you're going to sell beer, pick a spot where there's 45,000 students. And that's a really good spot to sell beer, right?
And so does the way it work, like the amount of beer you sell as a rep in that territory, you get more commission off that?
Exactly.
Okay. Is that what attracted you as like a potential for career growth, like the commission, or was it just the stability of the...
It was just that's just how it worked. I've never really been focused on the income or, what am I going to get out of this? It was always like, what can I do with my talents and how can I then better serve my customers and clients? So
for you, it sounds like, if I'm not wrong, your approach to life is just how can I find a way to be useful to those around me, and then obviously as a consequence of that you get paid for it. That kind of goes against the idea that's popular right now, is like follow your dreams and your passion and like make your passion your job. How do you react to that?
I totally understand that, but if just because your passion is golf doesn't mean you can play on the PGA Tour, right? But you can find something in the golf business. Heck, you could work at Topgolf, which is right over your shoulder right now, right? And if you love the game of golf, you could work at Topgolf, you could work at PGA Superstore of America, you could work in the business or around the business. Same thing in real estate. You don't have to be a real estate agent. You could work for a builder, you could work for a developer, you could work for a designer. So a lot of different things you could do. So while I love the idea of chase your passion and make it your job, sometimes that's not always possible.
It's cute, but it's not always reality.
Yeah, sometimes you got to pay bills. And so, look, the beer business was fun for me. It was a chance for me to be out every day, chatting with people, getting in front of people, trying to get my product on the shelf, trying to talk about the features and benefits of our products.
Yeah, I think it's an important lesson in there for anyone that's even starting out in business, especially younger entrepreneurs. being content even where you are in the moment. That doesn't mean you're happy and you don't want to move forward, but being content and kind of being patient in wherever part of life you are. Because if you're not even able to be happy in this moment, you probably won't be able to be happy moving forward wherever you end up going.
And I think the best way to advance is for someone to see that you're doing a good job at whatever level you're at, right? And when you see some of those people, I love catching people in our world doing amazing things, great service, great experience, you know, when nobody's watching them, right? And you see their dedication. I tell stories about shuttle bus drivers and hotel clerks and people working in banquet facilities in my keynote presentations around the country, that when you just stop and observe what they're doing and see how awesome they are at their what some people would consider a menial job, but they're so dedicated to doing it awesome.
It's actually a biblical principle. If you're able to be faithful and good in a little bit, you'd be able to do the same in a lot. And if you can't do it in a little, you won't be able to do it in a lot.
Exactly.
So you did that, and you were in the beer business. You ended up, like you said, moved to OSU and were selling there. And from what I understand, that was more profitable. Did you feel more settled down, or did you still have that drive, like, I need something else?
No, I think I worked my butt off, and I loved what I did, but the way the campus territory is set up is you got your carryouts and your grocery stores and the package places, and then you got your restaurants and bars, right? And so you would work the mornings, you would call on your carryouts and things like that, but then you'd have to wait until the afternoons until the bar owners or the bar managers would get in, you know, to open up their campus bars for the evening. And so there was a lot of work during the daytime and then meeting the managers at nighttime, trying to get your beers on tap and trying to get your specials run and trying to meet with the staff to get them to push, you know, your beer over competitors' beer. And so it meant a lot of times hanging out at happy hours and dinners and evenings out with the crew, because you're trying to schmooze the crew. You're trying to get them on your side, so to speak. And so it was long days and long nights and early mornings, and it really came down to, I didn't really have a plan of what to do next. I was just trying to sell more beer, really, and take care of my customers. And then, long story short, I came home one night late in the morning, or I guess early in the morning, after being out, with some customers. And my wife and I had a conversation. She was waiting up for me, and she had circled all the days on the month that I was out past midnight in my job. And it was about 25 or 26 in a month. And I, of course, got defensive and said, it's my job and it's what I'd like to do. But she said, you're good at it. But if we want to have a family, this is going to be really hard to maintain when you're not home until midnight, and then back out the door at 7 in the morning. So I called our realtor, Bonnie, who had helped us buy our first house. And we had a great time in that process. And I asked her, I said, do you think I could get into real estate?
Why did you call her?
Because I think my wife and I started having conversations about what careers would match my personality. And because we had such a fun time buying our first house and the process and the journey, that she just felt, and I felt, it would be maybe a career to look into. I didn't really know much about it, right? Having been a buyer, I just knew that the valuable guidance and advice that Bonnie provided for us was appreciated. And I thought, well, I could do that. I think I could. And so I reached out to her and said, hey, how do I explore getting into this? So
I assume, based on the issue you mentioned about being out too late, you were attracted. The main thing that attracted you as a realtor, besides being the personality part where you could talk with people, was that you got to do whatever you want with your time, essentially. Would that be it?
Yeah, I think being an independent contractor, Tim, is a big aspect of our business, right? Now, that's a cool thing. Being able to set your own schedule is a really cool thing. But it's also really hard to set your own schedule when you're working for other people, right? When you're trying to fit into their schedules as well. And it's a lesson I learned very quickly in this business, is either you control your schedule or somebody else does. And so you got to be really committed to control your schedule. But I just thought the ability to get out of it what I put into it was nice. See, I could work my butt off in the beer business, but a UDF, on the corner of 12th and High Street can only take so many Coors Lights each week. I can't sell them 150 extra Coors Light cases because I'm a nice guy, right? And so I was
you get so much out of what you put in.
Exactly. I was a little bit limited in what I could do. And in real estate, I think the opportunities are really endless, and that's maybe a good example of what I've done with my speaking, and not just selling real estate, but and leveraging it into leadership and management, and now speaking and coaching.
That's awesome. And so you called her, and what did she tell you? Did she say that, I think you'd be good at it, or I don't know? Yeah,
she honestly, I don't remember the exact words, Tim, but she said, oh my gosh, you'd be great at real estate. With the people and and with your personality, I can really see you having some success. So we went down and talked to the local Hondros real estate school to find out what it took to get licensed. Ohio is one of the hardest states in the country to get licensed in.
Really?
120 hours worth of classes. So you're dedicating a lot of time. Because I wasn't in a position to quit my job at the beer business, I took classes on the weekends, literally from 8:30 till 5:30, Saturdays and Sundays for 6 weeks in a row, or whatever it might be, 10 weeks in a row. But we made the commitment, my wife and I, that when I passed my real estate exam, I was going to go in and give my 2-week notice at the beer business and jump into real estate full time. I felt that the best way to get into it was to just get in and immerse yourself in it. Exactly. Learn how to swim once you're in the pool.
So how did that work? Like, what was your motivation? Was it just that I need to make this work because I don't have a job anymore? Once you kind of put in your 2-week notice, did you end up doing that, or?
Yeah, as soon as we decided to get into real estate, we made a decision as a family, just my wife and I at the time, but that we were not going to eat out 6 nights a week. We'd only eat out 3 nights a week. We weren't going to spend money on HBO and Showtime. We'd give up that. So we were starting to sort of save some money so that we could kind of cover ourselves during that startup time. I knew it wasn't a get rich quick business, so I didn't expect it, but I knew I was willing to work hard and do what I could, because as you might or may not know, real estate is a 100% commission job. You do not get a paycheck, you do not get benefits. And so I needed to get business. I needed to get out and meet people, and so I took every class I could. I listened to my manager, I coached with my manager, I wrote handwritten notes, and this was before social, so I just made sure I was active in my community and talked to everybody I knew about getting the business. I held open houses, I knocked on doors, anything I could to try and get people to say, we want you to help us find a house or list our house. And
so how did that work? Like you put your 2 weeks in, you started to become a realtor, you're just all around town, like doing all these things, being active. What did you learn quickly? Did you learn quickly there was one thing that worked better than another thing? There was one thing you'd rather do than not do? What was it like for you?
That's probably when I developed my philosophy. And you've heard me talk about it. Build relationships, solve problems, and have fun. I watched all the agents in our office, and I came from an office with incredible agents that were still to this day some of the best friends I have in the business, and they're mentors, and they're role models, they're teachers. But I watched all this stuff they did, and I said, all right, how can I do that in my own way? And if all you focus on is getting buyers and getting listings, it's a really challenging business. But then I realized if I build relationships every day, either deepen a relationship with someone that I've known for years or make new relationships with somebody I don't know, if I can help people solve their problems on a regular basis, and if I can have fun doing it, then usually if I do those 3 things, the other things that I need to do take care of themselves.
That kind of reminds me of Dominic, right? The guy that you worked for. That's what he did. He just solved on listening and solving someone else's problem first, and then it came back to him. And
I quickly realized that every real estate transaction is about a problem. People move because they have a good problem. They're getting married. They're having a baby. They got a new job. They might be moving because they have a bad problem, right? A death or divorce, or maybe a foreclosure or job loss, right? So either way, we're solving people's problems. And so if I just did that enough days in a row, I just felt like I was going to have some opportunities. And so that was kind of my early day philosophy that, man, what can I do to make sure I'm putting the opportunity out there to get in front of people and build a relationship.
And I'm not a realtor, but I think it works for all businesses. When you mention those problems, people aren't just going to come to you and like, oh, I have this problem, or like I have this thing that's motivating me to move. They don't just come and tell you that. It takes listening and trying to understand them. And maybe they don't even tell you directly. But I think, like you mentioned, the Dominic guy, and it just takes commitment to try to understand people. And if you only look at people as like a transaction for money, a lot of times you'll just miss that. And even if you get the transaction, there's no that longevity is not there, building that relationship.
Yeah, I know that now, with the knowledge I have in the world we're in now, that we are living in the attention economy, right? If I can get your attention, I can earn your trust. If I have your trust, I'll get your attention. Right? Think about that. If I can get your attention through marketing or word of mouth or introductions, over time, if I can earn your trust, then the next time I speak, you'll give me your attention. Right? If I have your attention, I can earn your trust. If I have your trust, you'll give me your attention. How do I get from attention to trust? Patience. How do I get from trust to attention? Patience. I can't be too quick to want to sell a deal because I need to pay bills. I need to be listening for people who have a need, who have a problem I can help solve. and who maybe have an urgency to do so.
Yeah, and that patience is very key, because I had experiences where I would like do a little thing for someone, like offer a discount on one thing, or just even go out for coffee and didn't think much of it, and then I even forgot about them maybe, but then they come back a year later and they're like, oh, I've been watching you or something.
Right.
And you've had that attention, and then now over that time you haven't been pushing them, you've been genuine, and now they've gotten your trust.
Yeah, how can you earn that opportunity to be top of mind awareness when someone has a need or knows someone who does? And that's all that marketing and branding and relationship building is trying to be the person they think of the next time they think of whatever that product or service is that you provide.
So you did that, and you kind of started in real estate. Were you with this brokerage right away, or were you somewhere else?
So I've always been with the company. It's just been called different names. I started with King Thompson Realtors. King Thompson then merged with Coldwell Banker to become Coldwell Banker King Thompson. And now it's Coldwell Banker Realty, but it's basically the same channel that I've been in the whole time.
So so you were there from the very beginning. And what do you think, was there like a turning point? You mentioned looking at other realtors and wanting to do what they do in your own way. Was there like an aha moment where you're like, I've been doing this and it works, but I can do it so much better?
Yeah, I think everything I've done when I was an agent, if I found an idea, a technique, a tool, a website that would help, I wanted to share it with everybody. I'd come into the office and run around and tell people, hey, guess what's working for me? Or look at this cool idea, or listen to this dialogue that I'm using, or have you seen this 8-track tape or this cassette tape, and listen to it. I had the opportunity then to move from an agent into a manager position, which meant I was going to give up sales, Tim, and I was going to stop working with buyers and sellers. But we just had our first child, so to have a paycheck and have benefits was a really cool opportunity to be a leader in our office and in our company.
So that's more of like a coaching role,
yeah, running an office. You're managing an office. So you're recruiting new agents, you're running the staff, you're making sure the agents are staying compliant, you're motivating and teaching them to continue to grow their business. And I did that for 2 years, and I loved that opportunity. But in those 2 years, I realized I loved the coaching and training part more than just the managing part. I didn't like the P&L. I didn't like having to hit numbers. I didn't like the security system in the office and making sure the staff was there and things like that. So our company gave me the opportunity to become the director of education for both Columbus and Cincinnati. So I went from an agent to a manager to the director of education, where I was in charge of all the training and education, because I was doing that on a small level in my branch office. And they thought, well, let's see what he could do if he has to impact all the agents
faithful and little,
in the company.
Faithful and big.
Exactly.
So did you take that role?
I did. I took that role on, and obviously a lot of the Columbus people knew me. None of the Cincinnati people really knew me, so I obviously had to get down there and do what? I had to build relationships and show them I could solve problems and have some fun doing it. So I created a training program that I felt was really going to help the agents who joined our company grow quickly. And myself and a couple other of my peers put that course together. We called it ProStart Academy. And it was really heavily designed around the prospecting, the lead generation, the business development aspect of our business, because I felt that we can teach agents how to fill out contracts and do computer work all day long, but if they don't have any clients to write contracts for, then it doesn't matter how well they can fill that contract out, right? And so that was a lot of fun. I did everything from company events down to new agent trainings, to top agent events, to office meetings and classes, and that was a ton of fun. And then in that role, I got a chance to be up in front of the classroom more, speaking in front of an audience every day, so to speak, whether it was 5 agents or 500 agents. It really became a passion of mine to share my ideas, my information, and hopefully a little inspiration with my audience, that they can do this business. They can be successful helping buyers and sellers and community members with this thing we call real estate.
I have a question. I wanted to kind of see where you moved on from there. But before that, I had a question. Let's say you said you went to Cincinnati to build new relationships. What is your approach if there's someone that you want to build a relationship with, like a new client or like someone that you have never worked with before? What's your approach to getting their attention? What do you do in that case? Is it like indirectly trying to go through their relationships? Like what is the best strategy in your opinion?
First of all, I think the best salespeople ask the most questions. So everything can be done with questions, right? When you meet somebody new, asking them questions about who they are and where they're from. Find out their hobbies and interests, right? You've heard probably the Ford technique, right? FORD, family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. So asking those questions about, tell me about your family, where are you from, what do you do for a living, what do you do for fun, what do you want to do in the future? because you can quickly find something in common with somebody, right? You ask a few questions, and the best part about asking more questions to people is, number one, if I ask more questions, you do more of the talking. If I listen to your answers, it gives me an opportunity to ask more questions, right? Tell me more about that, right? Sometimes those extenders, as I call them, tell me more. Why is that important to you? And it allows you to keep talking in those situations. And then all of a sudden, then once we found that 1 or 2 or 10 things that we have in common, then we can start building on that common ground instead of just going into, well, that's great, Tim. Do you want to buy this product? Right? Because that's all about me, not about you.
And that's kind of when you said going from attention to trust, in between that time period.
That patience,
maybe it takes a month, a year, 2 years. I think during that time period, if you get that common ground, you can kind of reach out more often those common grounds. So that's not just business, and it looks.
Sure, you have more reasons to talk to those people, more reasons to call, more reasons to. That doesn't have to be a sales pitch, but if enough times I'm reaching out to you, and I'm putting Sean Carpenter to the top of your mind, and you're not just thinking of me because of real estate, you're thinking of me because of the community, or because of the neighborhood, or because of golf or beer or sports or whatever it might be, then there's a better chance I'm going to pop into your head the next time you have a question about real estate or golf or beer or the neighborhood or whatever it might be.
And I think one important thing for anyone listening is that you do these things not for the sake of getting the sale at the end, because then it's not genuine, and a lot of times people will see through that. But you have to actually care when you reach out about those common grounds, about building relationships. You can't just have money as like the main foundation of why you're doing it. And so going back, you said you were becoming the director for Columbus and Cincinnati, right? And you really enjoyed that, talking in front of realtors. How did you go from there to where you are now, where you're traveling all over the country, talking all kinds of places?
Great question. So I started speaking, obviously, with our company, and had some opportunities to speak locally at the Columbus Realtors at their leadership retreats, and I was very active in the chairs there. I was chairman of or co-chair of the CORPAC committee. I was co-chair of the communications committee. I went on the board of directors, and so I got a chance to kind of be in front of a lot of the leaders and the staff. And I think people liked my style and they liked my message, so they invited me to start speaking at their leadership retreats. And I did about 5 or 6 of those retreats in a row. And then I started speaking at the Ohio Realtors leadership events. I spoke at my first Coldwell Banker International Business Conference in 2007 in Las Vegas. I reached out to one of my connections at the corporate offices in New Jersey, and they gave me an opportunity to speak. And it was a kind of a one-time chance, don't mess this up, kid, type thing. And my class was awesome. I did my signature class called the Realtor's Toolbox, Tools, Tips, and Techniques to Build Your Business. And it was fun, and it got great feedback, and it got great reviews. And so they asked me back the next year to speak again, and I got great reviews and great feedback. And then people who saw me the year before came back to see me again. And that was 2007. Well, I'm speaking next week at the Coldwell Banker Gen Blue Conference in New York City.
Oh, wow.
And I've been at every single one of those since that day in 2007. So at that event, more people saw me from our company. I started speaking at more leadership events around the region based on word of mouth and those things. And so I was getting the opportunity in kind of 2015, 2016, Tim, to speak a lot more, which I really, really liked. And so I had to make the decision of, do I still want to be the director of education? Do I still want to do these classes for all the new agents? And I made a decision with my family that it was time for me to sort of bet on myself and go out on my own and go back to being an independent contractor. I did miss working with buyers and sellers, so I went back I retired from that role here at Coldwell Banker as the director of education, went back into being an agent out of our Upper Arlington office where I live, and then I opened up my own company called Sean Speaks. And so I travel around the country talking at real estate conferences and company events and leadership retreats and things like that to audiences, really with the main theme of building relationships, solving problems, and having fun. A lot of the things that in our career we do, working with buyers, working with sellers, social media, customer service, strategic planning, those types of things, I think that are a lot of fun. And I've been doing that since 2016, kind of full time. Pre-COVID, I was doing about 60 events a year all around North America. Obviously, spring and fall are the big convention seasons. So as we talked about before we started recording, I'll be in 12 different cities in 11 different states over the next 7 weeks. So a lot of travel and a lot of fun, but each day I stand in front of a new audience, is an opportunity to impact somebody in some small way.
And it's kind of interesting listening to your story, how your philosophy of like building relationships and solving problems and having fun. It's like at the beginning, you might have been maybe solving problems, but not really building relationships. Then in the beer business, you're solving problems and building relationships. Fun, for sure. Yeah, and you're having fun, but like it's like more and more, you're doing it in a way that you thought you'd want to do. It's more enjoyable. So that's where you are now. What about moving forward? It doesn't seem like you really had like a dream, a vision you were following, but maybe like now, is there something you're looking forward to, like a plan, like this is what I want to do next kind of thing?
Yeah, I don't know that I have a target. I don't have a target up on the wall of speak to 100,000 people or whatever it might be. It just might be, can I impact someone wherever I'm at, one-on-one, in a room full of people, in a community? Can I, leave a legacy maybe down the road that people say, Carp's one of the good guys. Mm-hmm. Carp's someone who looks out for people. He helps people. We like to be around him. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I know I like doing what I'm doing. And so finding more opportunities to do that in a better way, in a more effective way, in a more efficient way, is something I'm always tinkering with. I do like, I've been blogging since 2002, I think, over 1,100 blogs now. So getting my thoughts out on paper on my blog called Carp's Corner has been fun. Sharing on social media, has been great for me over the last 15 years. There's no better way for me to build relationships, solve problems, and have fun further and faster and freer than I can with social media. I can only talk to so many people here in Columbus, Ohio. I can only talk to so many people each day. But on social media, I can talk to literally thousands of people, whether it's on social, whether it's on video like we're doing now, or whether it's a direct YouTube video or Vimeo video or whatever it might be, or Facebook Live or Instagram Live. I love getting in front of people and hopefully just making people say, Sean gave me some ideas and some inspiration to do what it takes. Because it's a pretty basic industry. Take care of your customers, build relationships, solve problems, and have fun. You'll be successful.
So would you say that is your motivation in what you do, helping people basically helping people live according to your philosophy?
Yeah, I think so. I think if I can preach my philosophy and make sure that people believe it, and whether it's my kids, because Lord knows they've heard me say those three things a lot. My wife hears it all the time when I sign off on my videos and things like that. But I think it's just a nice way to, if people say, I found this pretty good philosophy that I heard from my friend Sean Carpenter one day. And it's funny when people run into me for the first time or they call me on the voicemail and they hear it at the end of my message or whatever it might be, they'll say, you're the guy that does the relationships and the problems and the have fun, right? And it's like they maybe don't get it always right, but they know that that's part of my message.
Okay, that's awesome. And so is that what you would tell your younger self? Like if you would go back to the younger self, whether before you started working in the beer industry or maybe the week before you quit your beer industry job and went into real estate, what would you tell that younger self?
You know what I tell him, and I've been asked this question a lot, I would tell him to make more mistakes. I think when you're new in a career, you're always afraid to say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing or hit the wrong button or download the wrong form or something like that. But that's how you learn. You learn by when you do a bad listing presentation and they choose somebody else that you should have said something different. You could have said it a different way. You could have had more materials. You could have known your market better. You could have earned more trust. And so I think a lot of people get out of this business because they're not willing to make mistakes. They think that life is going to be a perfect, performance every time. And it's not. And so learning how to overcome those with grace and dignity and learn from it and go back and, fall down 7, get up 8 type mentality. That's probably what I would go back and tell the young Sean. Because I think my enthusiasm, my creativity, my passion can get me into the game. And then my competitiveness, my desire to want to come out and make it a win-win for everybody. It's not real estate, sales, speaking should never be a zero-sum game, which means if I win, you lose, right? It's a
win-win.
It's a win-win, exactly.
So kind of like to wrap this up, what are some people or books that you would point other listeners towards? Besides yourself, what would you point them towards? Like, is there a specific book that impacted you or maybe a speaker? What would you recommend? Yeah,
so the number one book I recommend to all my audiences every time, bar none, is a book called QBQ. The letter QBQ by John Miller. It stands for the question behind the question, but you'll see it on the cover, QBQ, and underneath it'll say the question behind the question. And what it's about, Tim, is it's about personal accountability. And if you think about what a sales career is, and especially in real estate where you're an independent contractor, you don't work for a broker, you work with a broker. You don't work for a company, you work with a company. This book is a reminder of we've got to control our own success. We've got to take care of our own self in order for everybody else to kind of, be able to help us. It talks about avoiding blame, avoiding procrastination, avoiding being a victim. And really the QBQ in a nutshell comes down to three things. It starts with I, right? It starts with what or how. It has I in it because it's about I, it's about me, it's about personal accountability, and then it has an action. So what can I do to be better prepared for the meeting? How could I be more aware of the changing market? Mm-hmm. It really makes it about me. And the reason why it's so impactful, Tim, is this year, on December 31st, in about 100 more days, I will wake up on New Year's Eve before my family gets up, and I will reread that book for the 17th year in a row. Mm-hmm. Every year I get up and read it.
Is it a short book?
It's 137 pages or whatever, but it's big words and small chapters. Mm-hmm. And I know all the jokes at the end of the chapters, and I know the punchlines, and I know the stories, but it reminds me as a refresh for the year that I can't blame anybody else for where I'm at in my life. I got to do what it takes to be successful. I got to be willing to put in the work. I got to try. And so it's a great book about personal accountability called QBQ. Mm-hmm. Absolutely fantastic. And then Seth Godin is the other person I would suggest people maybe pay attention to. Seth Godin is probably my favorite blogger, author, writer, speaker, thought leader. And he blogs every single day. This is Seth.com. I think you can find it. Just type in Seth Godin and Google, you'll find it. Every day I read his blog. Some days it's short, some days it's long, but every day it makes me think. And I think that's what makes Seth a thought leader, is that he doesn't care what you think. He cares that you think. And he just wants to challenge you. And so if I can be maybe in some small way a thought leader for my little tribe, right? As small as it is compared to Seth, compared what it is to some, bigger people in our world today. Mm-hmm. If I can just make people think and think about how they can build relationships and solve problems and have fun, then I feel like I've done my job.
Mm-hmm. One last question. Yeah. Beyond your career, what do you think is the most important thing in life?
It's a deep question. I'd probably say...
Or what is that to you, in a sense?
Yeah, I think just earning people's trust, right, is... Because we talk about being in a know, like, and trust business in sales, right? Well, the knowing and liking part's pretty easy. It's easy for people to know who you are. Liking is probably pretty easy, but you probably have some friends of yours, Tim, that you know and you like, but you wouldn't trust when it comes to financial advice, right? You probably have some friends of yours that you know and like, but you wouldn't trust when it comes to parenting advice or dating advice or something like that. I want to have people know me and like me, but I want them to trust me. And there's 3 C's that lead to trust, right? There's competence, got to be good at what you do, right? There's confidence. People have to see it, feel it, and hear it. And if people have confidence in you, they'll trust you more. And the third one is consistency. And so if I can be consistent at having confidence and being good at my job, competence, then I'll earn that trust that I seek from people. Awesome.
Thank you so much, Sean. I appreciate your time and your expertise in this topic. It was a pleasure to hear your story and how you kind of grew. And I think a lot of people that heard it, myself included, have some takeaways and things they could learn from you. And I think that if you keep on doing what you're doing, you'll continue to grow in this industry. So thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Tim. Appreciate it.